I read an article recently, a guy describing his workout regimen and the things he did, and he was selling his workout program. He was trying to get you to buy it, but he was talking about all the process that he went through, and he's got like 24 months worth of program or exercise deals or whatever. But what was key to the whole thing was you had to eat like he told you to eat, otherwise the workouts wouldn't do what they were designed to do. And his particular workout thing, his eating program that went along with the workout program, had a specific window of the day you were supposed to eat, and a specific window of the day you were not supposed to eat. What he had said was that when you ate the same amount of calories, basically, just in a different time of day, and you ate right things and not bad things, that it would recalibrate your metabolism, and it would help in your healthy lifestyle. But he had built into his program something I found very interesting. A lot of diet programs have what they call cheat meals, that you can have one cheat meal at the end of the week and you can, just go crazy. Not too crazy, but crazy. Well, this guy in his program had built into it 2, 3, and depending on what you wanted to get out of it, 4 cheat meals during the week. I thought, well, this guy's going to make $1 billion. He's just saying you can have cake all that you want during the week until people realize that's not how it works. But I started thinking about cheat meals. What is a cheat meal? I think the phrasing probably doesn't do justice to what it really is. Because in a diet program, or like he had his eating program, this guy I'd read about, a cheat meal really isn't a cheat because you're not cheating. The food you're eating at the end of the week is part of the program. It's part of the plan. You're going to eat the cake. You're planning on eating the pizza and the cake. You're planning on eating the pizza, the cake, and the Bluebell that you've been saving. You're going to eat 2 cartons of that Bluebell. You got an extra thing of Klondike bars behind the Bluebell, and you're going to take it all down because this is your one meal you're going to celebrate. You see, but that word is really key to the deal. It's not really a cheat meal if it's part of the program. It's more of a celebration. It's a celebration that you've done what you're supposed to do throughout the week. It's a celebration that you look forward to in the process. I saw a guy that I follow on Instagram the other day. He is a very high-paid movie actor, and he works out a lot. But he has one cheat meal a week, and he always posts about it. And the other day, his cheat meal, he had worked a long day on the movie set, but he wasn't going to neglect his cheat meal. So he ate 7 banana chocolate chip pancakes, each of them that big around. He is a very big man, and so I thought, well, that's a big cheat meal. There's another movie star that I follow on Instagram, and there was one time he was working out for a role, getting ready for it, and he had a cheat meal. He was only allowed to have one part of the week, and he hadn't had a cheat meal. He was only supposed to have it maybe once every 2 weeks. And so he'd been waiting for this cheat meal. And he said, well, I don't want to wait till tomorrow. So he stayed up till 12:30 one night so he could have his cheat meal that he was supposed to have the next day, that day, because he was already craving it so much. Actually on the post, he was showing off his cheat meal. And then the next post, he showed off his empty carton and said, I already ate it. And so cheat meal, though, like I said, if it's part of the plan, it's not a cheat. We look forward to it. We celebrate it. And it's something that is built into what we're supposed to be doing. It is a necessary part of the program. Well, what we're going to see today in Luke chapter 15 is that not only is celebration a great thing, it helps recalibrate us, it helps us have something to look forward to, it is something that was designed by God to be a part of our lifestyle. So in Luke chapter 15, we've been looking, actually the last several weeks in Luke 15. Jesus has given us some parables in Luke 15 that are in direct response to some church people, some religious people, who were complaining about who Jesus was focusing on. And it's not like they were complaining to Jesus, they were complaining to themselves. They were whispering complaints to themselves as they were standing in the back of the room, not anywhere near Jesus. But Jesus, being Jesus, knew what they were talking about. So he gave us Luke 15 as direct response to what those guys were whispering among themselves. And he gave one illustration about a shepherd who lost some sheep. That if you lose one sheep, of course you're going to go and find the sheep, and then you're going to celebrate it. And then he gave another illustration about a lady who lost this really valuable coin. She's going to search and search and search until she finds it, and then she's going to celebrate the fact that she finds it. And then we get here to the end of Luke 15. And this is probably, out of all three stories, the most famous of the stories, the parables. This one has been used as illustrations in movies. This one has been told. Even people who don't know Scripture and don't believe anything about God know the heading of this section of Scripture. The parable of the prodigal son. But it's not really about the prodigal son. I think that title is a mischaracterization of this section of Scripture. Because as we read through it, I want you to remember why Jesus is giving these parables. Because those religious leaders, those Pharisees, were complaining. And so Jesus gave us two parables talking about finding the lost. Now he gives us one, and he's going to give us the only section in this chapter of an illustration specifically aimed at those guys who were complaining about what Jesus was doing. So we're going to start off, we're going to read through this first section, but we're going to get to what we're really focusing on here in a second. But we got to read the first section to provide context for the rest of it. So in Luke chapter 15, on page 874 if you're using the Pew Bible, or it's in most of it is in your bulletin, not all of it because I'm adding some stuff this morning. It's going to be on the screens. Some of it is in the YouVersion Bible app, although I did find out some people aren't able to access it, but we posted it to our Facebook. If you want to jump on our Facebook real quick, you can find it there too. Luke chapter 15, we're going to start in verse 11. Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me.' And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything." Now in this first section of verses, I want to point out two things real quick before we move on. First off, it says that he squandered his property, everything he had, in reckless living. Reckless living. That is, living that he did not think about the consequences. He didn't think about how what he did affected anybody else. All he thought about was how he wanted to take care of himself. And it made him happy, it pleased him, but it had massive collateral damage to those around him, to maybe his friends, ultimately to his family down the road. But he wasn't thinking about them in the moment. He was just thinking about himself. Now, we've all made reckless decisions going along with that definition. We've made decisions based strictly upon ourselves, not thinking about how it affects our spouse or how it affects our family or how it affects our kids or our neighbors or the future, how it affects us in 5 years. We don't think about that. We're just thinking about us in the moment. I make those decisions. I make those decisions even now because we're human and I'm human and selfish, and that's just a part of the being human. Doesn't make it okay by any stretch of the imagination. But it's how we can relate to this guy. He made some reckless, poor decisions. And then look at verse 16. He took this job feeding pigs for a guy living in another country because he's destitute, absolutely poor beyond imagination. He's so starving that he wants to eat the pig food. And the idea here is he's not thinking of eating. The pig food doesn't look attractive as he's got it. He has poured it into the slop bucket, and the pigs are eating it. And as the pigs are eating it, he's thinking, that looks delicious, because he is so hungry. And his stomach is eating itself, and he just cannot get over it. And then Jesus makes this statement: no one gave him anything. No one gave him anything. Now, why this stands out here is he is in this world. His world has come collapsing in on itself. He's lost all his money. His friends have abandoned him. No one is helping him. And it says no one is giving him anything. Why that stands out is he had a situation with his father where the father gave him everything. While no human being will provide anything for him, he still has a father who will give him everything if he will simply turn to the Father. Many times in our lives, sometimes we get so focused on how bad a situation is and how we don't have X, Y, or Z, we miss out on the fact that the Father will give us everything we need. He will provide for all of our needs. He will take care of us in any capacity we need him to take care of us. He will provide exactly what we need, exactly when we need it if we depend on him. And the Son finally comes to that realization in the next verse. Verse 17. But when he had come to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. Now, it says he came to himself. He had a realization in this moment. In context of Jesus' description here, this son who is lost, who is wandering around doing whatever he did, this is essentially his moment of salvation. He comes to himself, realizes, I need to go to the Father. I need to turn to the Father. I have done terrible things in my life, and there's only way to be healed and to be taken care of is to go to the Father. So, verse 20, and he arose and came to his father. He wants to be found. He wants to be found. And the father was looking for him to be found. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. Wanting to be found, he was found by the father. The father was constantly looking, was constantly waiting for him to turn back so he could grab a hold of him. I want you to notice too, the son didn't have to do a whole bunch of stuff to come to the father. All that the son did was come. Notice that there's only two descriptive verbs about the son. He arose and he came. He arose and he came. But look at how much the father did when the son finally wanted to be found. The father saw him. The father felt compassion. The father ran. The father hugged him. And the father kissed him. The father did way more than the son did. The father was ready and willing to bring the son back into his household. He ran to him, which was socially unacceptable. He grabbed him. He kissed him. He was ready for the son to come home because the son finally wanted to be found. Look at verse 21. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants. Now, so the son's coming in absolute humility here. You know, he realizes, like it said, he came to his senses, that he had done terrible things. He had dishonored his father. He had lived in a way that he should not have done. He had made reckless decisions, poor decisions, and his life was now where it was, and he needed the father's help. He said, I'm willing to simply be a servant. I understand that I have done things, but I just want to be near you. I just want to be near you. The father doesn't even hear anything the son has said. All he sees is the son has come home to me. Verse 22. But the father said to his servants, now I love how that begins, but. That's a holy but. The son is saying all this has happened, and the father is saying that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter when it comes to your spirituality. That doesn't matter when it comes to our relationship. You did that, but I'm going to do something far greater than that stuff. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate, for this son of mine that was dead is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. So he does this stuff for the son. He says, bring the best robe we have. You know, the son is coming from where he came from. He's not clean. He hasn't had a bath. He didn't have to do anything special, clean himself up, make himself presentable to enter the father's house. He just had to come, and the father took care of everything after that. He came, the father put the best robe on him. The father put shoes on his feet because undoubtedly the journey had wounded him deeply. The father put a ring on his finger, signifying his position now that he has in the household. And the father says, kill the fattened calf, the thing we've been preparing for the great day of celebration. And that fattened calf, now, in those households back then, they all didn't have calves they were fattening, but they had something that was relatable to that, depending on how much money they had. But for this context, a fattened calf, something that they were preparing for months, possibly even years, for one particular moment of celebration, whether it be a wedding or an opportunity. And this house, they've been preparing this fattened calf for something special, something significant, something that stands out. And the Father says, this is it. The loss has been found. We're going to celebrate. Kill the fattened calf and let's celebrate. And so they begin to celebrate. You see, the finding that they had, the finding of the son, the finding produced excessive celebration. There wasn't a flag on the play because there was excessive celebration. Excessive celebration was built into the mindset. They were going to celebrate the fact that the son came home. And the father was so excited about that fact. Lost has been found. See, there's something that we must remember, and it's at the heart of the Father, that we must never neglect the celebration. Never neglect the celebration. Oftentimes when we encounter something great, we feel good for the moment, but then we immediately in our mind move on to the next thing. I've got something else to do. I've got something else on my agenda. I've got to keep moving and do this. And we don't take a moment and celebrate what God has done for us and celebrate the greatness of what God has taken place as a result of God's intervention now. And we must never neglect the celebration because the celebration brings glory to God. The celebration honors Jesus. It is supposed to be a part of our lives. And we have here the Father celebrates. And he instructs everyone around him to celebrate. His entire house, the Father's house, is supposed to be a house of celebration. Verse 25. Now, so before we had the Father intervening, it said, but the Father says this. You say this about yourself, but the Father says this about you. Now here we have this other character introduced. It says, now his older son was in the field. And as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. Now the older son comes in. And the older son's been faithful. The older son's been serving. The older son's been working the farm. It's been, as the father has been scanning the horizon, the older son's been doing the majority of the work. He's been taking care of everything going on. And he hears as he's coming in from a day's work, all that's going on at the house, the celebration, the partying, the music, the noise, all the people who have gathered from the community, even the servants are partying. And he's trying to figure out what's going on. So he calls somebody over and says, well, why are we celebrating? What's the deal? I didn't know that we were having a party today. And the servant responds to him. Verse 26, he calls one of the servants and asked him what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. That phrase, safe and sound, is very interesting. Because in the presence of the Father, the Son is safe and sound. What he had experienced before, he was definitely not safe or sound. Being in the presence of the Father did not remove the wounds he had experienced in the journey to get to where he was, but the Father was a part of the healing process of coming from the difficulties he had encountered. So the son is safe and sound. But the older son responds not in the same way that the father did. And remember, all right, this is in direct response to Jesus hearing those religious people, those church people complaining about where Jesus was focusing his ministry. And so this older son represents those people. The son, verse 28, became angry and refused to go in. So his father came out and entreated him. I want you to notice, too, the father's action. Just as the father came to the lost son, the father came to the son who had already been found, the son who had stayed home, the son who did not wander. The father came to him just as much as the father came to the other son. The Father will always come. The Father is always ready and willing to embrace, to hug, to experience our lives if we will turn to him. So the Father comes. He comes now to this older son who's angry, mad, and throwing a temper tantrum. Verse 29. But he answered his father, look, these many years I have served you, and I have never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed a fattened calf for him. Now you can kind of hear the anger and resentment and bitterness that has welled up in the heart of this older son. He has no joy in his heart that his younger son has come home. He just sees dishonor in what the younger son has done. He just sees a life wasted in what the younger son has done. He sees this younger son has done something terrible to the father in asking that for his inheritance ahead of time, in spending it and wasting it in the reckless living that he did. And so he sees this other son basically as dead to him and wants nothing to do with him and cannot believe that the father would celebrate him. What are you doing, killing the fattened calf for him? He doesn't deserve it. He's a terrible human being. And he's mad. But his anger isn't necessarily at the younger son. The anger is on what he deemed he deserved. You see, he had stayed while the other son left. He had stayed, and the other son was found, even though he's lost, but he's saying, I need to be celebrated because I stayed. I need to be celebrated because I didn't go off and do the mess that he did. I wasn't reckless. I took care. Who took care of that fattened calf? Who fattened up the calf? I did. And yet you killed the fattened calf that I was fattening for myself. You killed it for him. The older son missed the heart of the father. You see, what we see in the life here that Jesus is illustrating in the father's actions is that the celebration is for the finding, not the staying. The staying can always be a part of what's going on. The staying can still embrace the presence of Jesus, but the celebration is for the finding. We must celebrate life, not celebrate stagnation. Celebrate life. Celebrate the finding of those who are lost. We're supposed to be imitating the same actions that the Father had in scanning the horizon for those who need to be found. So the older son just lets his father have it. You did all this stuff. You celebrate him. Why not celebrate me? You see, the older son really, he wants the attention. He wants the attention. But the fact of the matter is, he always had attention of his father. Look at verse 31. The father says to him, Son, you were always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad. For this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. So the father tells him, you wanted to celebrate? You could have celebrated. You've always been here. You've always had the opportunity to celebrate. You could have used that fattened calf. It's yours just as much as it's mine. You could have already been doing it. But the celebration we're experiencing now is because something great has happened. No matter what he did in his past, that doesn't matter. He's come to me, and I can help him. You see, what the older son really wanted was for the younger son to not get so much attention. It was for the younger son to not get that attention. He doesn't feel that the younger son deserves the attention or deserves the celebration. But the older son isn't the father. The older son misunderstands the heart of the father. You see, the heart of the father is always for the lost, because the eyes of the Father are always scanning the horizon for anyone wanting to be found. Always scanning the horizon for anyone wanting to be found. He's always looking, he's always pursuing, and he will always come the very second somebody says, I want to be found. I want to know Jesus. And in that moment, the Father is there doing what this father did. Running, hugging, kissing, saying, you are now a part of my family. Give him the ring that tells of everyone of his position with me. Give him shoes for his feet to provide from this day forward. Give him food that will help sustain him. Give him strength in the days to come. You see, what we see in the heart of the Father is that both of these sons came from him. Both of the sons came from him, and he will always celebrate when one returns. And that is the case with us spiritually. Every single human being comes from the Father. Every single human being has been created by God. All of us have been created by God. Both us who believe in him and those who don't. Everyone has been created by God. And if you believe Scripture, you believe that. It says it. both in Old Testament scripture, in the Psalms, in Jesus' own words, in John chapter 1. We have all been created by God. However, since we have all been created by God, and some come to believe and some still refuse to believe, but in the same moment, even though we have all been created by God, if any of us will return to him, if any of us will come to him in the same way that the Son came, he will celebrate our coming to him. You see, Jesus will celebrate no matter how far you have come or in what condition you were in when you arrive. Undoubtedly, this younger son did not smell the best. He hadn't bathed in months, most likely, if we take the context of what he's talking about. And the things he did before he took the pig job made him not smell so great. And so having done those things and then having the pig job and then going home, he was a very stinky young man. He probably didn't look that great either. He's probably all, not having taken care of himself for months. But it doesn't matter what he looked like. It doesn't matter what condition he was in. It doesn't matter what condition his heart was in. It doesn't matter how many scars he had or how wounded he was from the stuff he's been through. When he came to the Father embraced him irregardless of all that mess and said, "You are now with me. I don't care what you smell like. I don't care how far you had to come to get to me. I will be with you from this day forward." Jesus will celebrate no matter where you're coming from. No matter what life you have experienced, even if you are a believer and you've gone through mess, he will still celebrate you coming to him. In whatever condition you're in when you arrive, he will still embrace you. He will still celebrate you because we need Jesus. A lot of times we see somebody and we don't want to embrace them. They don't look that great. They don't smell that great. They've been through some stuff. We don't want to be associated with what they've been through or the lives they're going through. I read a book this past year by a pastor who's out in California. A pastor in New York. And he said a lot of what happens in their church, they have people who come to their church being on the streets of New York who just wander in and stuff happens in those people's lives. And even during the service, he gets hit up for a variety of things. And he said, but that's just a part of life and helping people, and that's what they do. And this one guy came in the church, and it's a guy who had not had a job for several years, living on the streets of New York. And this pastor was very honest in the book. He said, this guy came to me, and I instinctively thought, he's going to, hit me up for money. It's the invitation. He's going to hit me up. That's fine. So the pastor instinctively reaches for his wallet, and the guy said, no, I don't want that. And the pastor says in the book, he said, this guy had the strongest odor that I have ever smelled in my entire life. A mixture of a whole wide variety of things, from bodily fluids to chemicals to alcohol to all kinds of things. And he said, the pastor is already recoiling from the smell just instinctively. And he's being transparent in the book. I mean, if I'm writing a book, I'm not going to say those things, but he says those things. And the guy says, I don't want the money. I want to know the Jesus you were just talking about. And the pastor immediately was very convicted about the situation. So they prayed, and then the pastor embraced him. How many of us, if we smelled a person who was giving off the worst odor we have ever smelled in our entire lives, would hug somebody, undoubtedly rubbing that smell on us, in celebration because they came to know Jesus, and not have a second thought about it? That's the heart of this guy, this father. That's the heart of that pastor in New York. That's the heart of Jesus when he went down to that pool beside Jerusalem, and there was a whole bunch of sick people around it, and there was one guy beside the pool who couldn't get in the water. But as we see from the description, all those sick people, undoubtedly, Jesus, when he went down there, had to step through the sick to get to this one guy he was going to help. Not just did he step through the sick, what it says there, it says Jesus knelt down to talk to the guy. Can you imagine? People around this pool with superstitious belief who thought if they could get into the water first, then they would be healed. So people were camping out there day and night, not taking bathroom breaks, but going to the bathroom where they were, and Jesus knelt down in the mess to help the guy. That's who Jesus is. He doesn't care what kind of mess you got in your life. If you're going to come to him, he is going to embrace you. And that's the heart of the Father. And you may say, right now, but you don't know my mess. I know Jesus, or maybe you don't know Jesus. I've got mess. We had people here Thursday night, or Friday, it was Thursday night, who were getting out of a program at the jail that had infused Jesus into their lives, and because of that, they made complete changes in their lives. Complete changes. From alcohol to drugs to physical decisions they had made that were not the best. But they came here to have dinner before they went down to assembly for a graduation ceremony in celebration because of what had happened. And it wasn't just them. Their families came with them. Members of the police department came. The prosecutor came. All to recognize that Jesus had done something in the lives of those people that could not have been done otherwise. It took Jesus to change them. There's being discussion happening. I was talking to the prosecutor before the dinner. Around the state of Arkansas saying, I don't know what is going on in the jail in DeQueen, but we need to replicate that around the state. It's not some special program that somebody concocted in their mind in some back dark room. It's Jesus. That's the answer. He doesn't care what those people were going through 6 months ago because now they want Jesus. And so he will take his blood that he shed when he died and wipe away all the sins. Now, naturally, there's going to be consequences. There are always consequences sometimes when we do make decisions here in this life. But spiritually, they're pure. Spiritually, it's gone. They're forgiven. And they can walk a life now. And those people, wish you could have seen them. Different people. A different light was behind their eyes that is often behind their eyes. And they were walking out, having experienced some stuff, but looking at a road ahead that had been laid for them because of Jesus. And that is who we want to be. We want to be somebody, a church, who embraces people who need Jesus. No matter what people look like or people smell like. Because spiritually, we're all the same without Jesus. And it's only with Jesus can we be healed. I tell you, one Sunday afternoon, my heart was broken. I got a phone call. We had a young woman come to church. It's been some time ago. A young woman come to church who did not smell the best and who came having had too much to drink that Sunday morning. And she came to church and she sat down here in this room, and one of our church members accosted the lady and told her, "You don't need to be here." And the lady got up and left. And that broke my heart when I heard this story. I called that church member the next day. And I said, yes, she needs to be here. If there's anywhere somebody is going to come who is in obvious need of help, it is going to be here. I said, absolutely, this is where that lady needs to be. And I hunted down the number of the lady who got kicked out of church and said, no, we want you. We want you here. And I'll tell you right now, unequivocally, if your mindset is we don't want those people here until they get healed, until they get fixed, that we're not the church for you. We want people here who need Jesus. I need Jesus just as much as that lady needed Jesus when she was ushered out the door. We all need Jesus. And this green carpet is equipped for any sort of shoes or bare feet who will walk on it. We want them all. Any of them and all of them. Because we got people in our community who need Jesus desperately. And just as it was illustrated at that dinner the other night, we got people here in our community who have their families and their own souls ravaged by alcohol and all kinds of hard drugs and prescription drugs, just with names you can't even pronounce. And it's all over the place. I'll tell you this right now. We have people in this room who have pills in their purses or their pockets right now because it has become a part of who they are. Are those people bad people? No. Their sin isn't any worse than yours. They need Jesus just as much as you need Jesus, just as much as I need Jesus on a daily basis to help me and intervene on my behalf. And I tell you, if that is you right now, Jesus can help you today. He can help you today. And he'll be celebrating you today if you make a decision to follow Jesus today. Because I want to show you something. The last part of this scripture. Something that just blew my mind the other day when I found it. That's why this whiteboard's on the screen, or on the stage, because I didn't know how to put this on the screen. Right down here in verse 32, Jesus says, "It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." I read that phrase, "it was fitting." And I was thinking about that. It was fitting. You know, it makes you think of it was appropriate, it was right, it was socially acceptable. But then I pulled up my Bible software, and I hovered my little cursor over that phrase, "it was fitting." And if you didn't know, the New Testament was originally written in Greek, a specific kind of Greek that the most amount of people in that area spoke. And that's why Jesus wanted this to be written in Greek, so that the most amount of people could read it. And so there's one word for that "it was fitting" phrase in the Greek. And I hovered my cursor over that phrase on my software, and it popped up, and my eyes just lit up when I read this, because it sparked a memory from back in the day. The word for that phrase, "it was fitting," I'm going to write it here for you. You might pronounce that? I've heard people pronounce it different ways, dei or die, but really it's day. Everybody say day. Say day. Day. This is what that Greek word is there that says "it was fitting." But you know what this literally means? It literally means it was necessary. Not just fitting, not just appropriate, not just okay for the moment. It was needed. Breathing is necessary. Heartbeat is necessary. Water is necessary. Food is necessary. And according to the word of Jesus, celebrating is necessary. Jesus wants people to be found, and he's going to celebrate every single time. Celebration is a necessary part of life, but we've got to celebrate the right thing. The older son wanted to celebrate himself. Jesus wanted to celebrate the people who are messy and need to be helped, need to be healed, need to be rescued. Celebration is necessary. Are you celebrating the right thing? Are you focused on the right thing? Do you tend, like I tend sometimes, to have the mindset of the older son is, why didn't I get, why am I not allowed, why can I not have, I deserve, ... Or do we embrace the attitude of Jesus and of the father in the parable? And we will seek and we will find anyone who is lost. Why didn't the older son go and find his younger brother? That's a question that's always been in my mind. Why didn't he go and find him? Why didn't he just continue to work and allow his younger brother go off and do whatever he's doing? If my siblings were off doing junk, I'd go and find them and say, "No, you're done doing this." Sometimes siblings don't want to be found. Sometimes they do whatever they do, and they're going to make their own decisions. That's what they're going to do, just like our kids. We can't force them to do something, but we can help them to see truth. But why didn't the older brother go and find? Why was he content to live his life and celebrate himself and not celebrate when his brother came home? Because he was focused on himself. He didn't see the necessary part of celebration in the life of his lost brother. So today, we need to make two decisions. One of two decisions. Either right now you're sitting in this room, you're watching online, and you have not made a decision to follow. You have not had that moment like that younger son had when you came to your senses and said, "I need to come to the Father." And so now would be your moment to come to the Father. You say, "I need to come, I need to be embraced. I know I've had mess, but I need to be embraced by Him and allow Him to take care of me and provide for me." Or maybe you are like the older son, and you have been faithful and you have been loyal, but there has been some mindset things. Or maybe you have been faithful to the Lord, but you have had areas in your life where you have allowed mess to creep in, whether it be addictions or thought processes or actions that have become patterns that are not the best, and you need the Father to take care of you, what will you do? Will you come to the Father and allow Him to help you because we all need the Father's help? Or will you continue to do what you're currently doing? So one of two things. Will you come to the Father for the first time? Or will you come to the Father today again and say, I need help? You can come and you can pray. In a minute I'm going to pray. Maybe you're one of the ones that I mentioned a minute ago, and you've got something in your purse or your pocket that should not be there, that has been a bane on your family's life, or maybe it's in the glove box of your car. And you need to come and bring it to Jesus and say, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want any more of this. I don't want any part of this. I only want Jesus. Maybe that's you. Maybe you need to come and do that today. And if you look around the room and you say, I don't want to do it, there's too many people in the room, I know that guy over there and he's going to judge me and he's going to think this about me and she's going to say that. Don't even think about that. That's Satan trying to mess with your head. That's not even what you need to be thinking about. You need to be thinking about Jesus. He's going to embrace you today in a way you never thought possible. In a way maybe you have never had in your life. But He will provide it because He is the good Father. So will you come to Jesus today?